Coming up on Tech News today, the mother of all patent battles, Samsung versus Apple, kicks off. Also, how Twitter ruined cycling in England, and print out a gun. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, July 30th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix. It just takes a webcam and a click to turn your online meeting into high-definition video conferencing. Meet with colleagues anywhere in the world, even from an iPad. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use promo code TNT. And by the new Squarespace. Squarespace introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website or blog. Plus, more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs with automatic device scaling. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT7. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, try to put them in context for you. We start with the top 10 stories of the day in the News Fuse. The mother of all patent battles kicks off today in San Jose federal court as Samsung and Apple sue each other over alleged patent infringements. Apple claims Samsung has breached 7 patents as well as trade dress violations. Samsung is demanding a reasonable royalty rate for 5 standards essential patents, which it claims Apple has infringed. Jury selection starts today with opening arguments to follow.
Microsoft's hardware group has announced 4 new Bluetooth-driven mobile input devices for Windows 8 tablets and laptops, but also designed to work with iOS and Android tablets. The Wedge mobile keyboard is a keyboard stand protective cover hybrid. It'll run you $79.95. The Wedge Touch mouse is a blue track sensor, which will let you use the mouse on almost any service, $69.95 for that. The Sculpt Touch mouse has only a 4-way scroll strip, but is cheaper than the Wedge Touch at $49.95. And finally, the $49.95 Sculpt Travel Keyboard is a Windows 8 hotkeyed wireless typing device.
Google security engineer Travis Ormandy found that Ubisoft's Uplay DRM installs a backdoor via a browser plugin that allows any website to take over your computer. Uplay is used to connect to Ubisoft online services. Now, Geek.com reports that Ubisoft has already issued a patch, and after the update, Uplay will only be able to open the Uplay application.
DRM never causes these problems. I don't know what's up. Sony. Apple announced this weekend that it had served more than 3 million downloads of the new Mountain Lion version of OS X in 4 days since its release. Apple claimed in its press release that the number made Mountain Lion the most successful OS X release yet.
2 men suspected of stealing subscriber names, phone, and personal identification numbers of 8.7 million users of South Korea's largest fixed-line mobile operator, KT Corp, and then selling that data to telemarketers have been arrested. The hackers allegedly made an estimated 1 billion won, equivalent to about $877,000 US from the sale. KT Corp apologized to its subscribers, issuing a statement to strengthen the internal security system and raise awareness of security among all employees to prevent causing inconvenience in the future.
Gather round, kids. It's time for some statistics.
Woo.
According to StatCounter, Windows Phone saw a huge 23.5% increase in its European market share, which brings it to a whopping 1.68% in that market. Strategy Analytics took a look at the U.S. market and found that in the second quarter, iOS gained market share while BlackBerry and Android declined. However, Android is still the dominant platform with over 56% of the U.S. market.
Man, I'm on the Apple beat today. Another Apple story. Not all leaks of Apple designs coming out of court documents. 9to5Mac reports that repair shop iLab has posted photos of the next iPhone assembled from various leaked iPhone parts. So it looks a little janky, a little like not quite fitting together perfectly. The image shows a taller iPhone with a smaller dock connector and a headphone jack on the bottom.
Sony and LG both confirmed that several devices from both companies won't be getting new versions of Android. On the Sony side, it's the Xperia Arc S and the Xperia Mini Pro that won't be eligible for Jelly Bean. On LG's side, LG Canada has confirmed that the Optimus 2X and Optimus Black won't even be upgraded from Gingerbread. Both of those handsets were expected to receive ice cream sandwich, so at least in Canada, the story has changed.
Opera released an update on its business, which fueled some smoldering rumors about Facebook trying to acquire the browser maker. Active users of Opera's mobile internet browsers have now topped 200 million across platforms. Opera's doing very well in markets like Africa, where the report made a point of indicating Facebook was the most popular site visited in the Opera mini browser.
Remember that complex Google Fiber sign-up process? Well, it didn't deter the eager folks in Kansas City. Google has received over 3,900 pre-registrations. More than 20% of the fiberhood zones, those have already attained enough pre-registrations that will guarantee Google Fiber installation. There's still a month left to pre-register.
All right, this episode of Tech News Today brought to you by GoToMeeting. Summertime means travel, means everybody's on different schedules. Everybody's all over the place. There's vacations happening, shorter work days, shorter work weeks, people working remotely. Trying to meet your clients and colleagues can be almost impossible. That's why we recommend GoToMeeting with HD Faces. It lets you meet face-to-face no matter where you are. With GoToMeeting by Citrix, all you have to do is have a webcam and you send them a link. You click on the link, your webcam turns on, you collaborate via HD video. You can even join from an iPad, and you see people. When you talk to them, it makes a difference when you see their expressions, see their reactions, see their hand motions. You'll feel instantly connected, even if you're thousands of miles apart. Plus, GoToMeeting is just easy to use. iPad users can download a free GoToMeeting app to join in. We use it here. We have all kinds of meetings with people using GoToMeeting with HD Faces, and it makes a difference when you can actually hear. There's less of that, like, wait, who's talking now? What did you? Oh, I didn't quite understand. It all makes things go better. So our listeners can try GoToMeeting free for 30 days. Don't wait. For this special offer, visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TNT. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to dig a little deeper into the stories, very happy to have Mr. Dwight Silverman, tech blogger and social media manager at the Houston Chronicle. How's it going, Dwight?
Going quite well. I feel like I was just here.
Yeah, were you on TWiT yesterday, huh?
I was on TWiT last night. Yeah,
you're a glutton for
so
punishment.
I'm in the groove.
Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Let's start off with that patent battle going on in San Jose today. Judge Lucy Koh has warned from the start that she's not going to seal documents in this case unless absolutely necessary. So over the weekend, we had a treasure trove of publications of various mock-ups and design pictures, a lot of other stuff getting leaked. We've seen some cool prototypes. In fact, All Things D put up a slideshow of about 50 different design sketches that they dug out of Saturday's filing. Samsung revealed in its filings it's got a couple of new Windows Phone 8 handsets coming, the Odyssey and the Marco. They'll run Qualcomm MSM 8960 chips, 1.5 gigahertz system on a chip. It's like reading Engadget or The Verge or something here, just looking through the court filings. What's getting the most attention, though, is Samsung trying to point out that a filing that showed a mock-up of an iPhone with a Sony logo on it as evidence that Apple was imitating Sony. And if they can show that they're imitating Sony, then they can say, well, if we're imitating Apple, Apple's just imitating Sony.
So this is not some sort of a photo that they got their hands on. This is actually a phone that did not exist with Sony printed on the front.
This was a design exercise by Shin Nishibori. So yeah, it wasn't ever made into a phone. It was just a design exercise. Judge Koh has ruled that Samsung cannot talk about the impact of Sony designs on Apple in the court case. But Samsung has decided this morning that they want Shin Nishibori to testify. He's in Hawaii, says he's sick, says he doesn't want to testify, but Samsung's still pushing for it. They've asked the judge if that at least would be allowed. He did these designs showing what a Sony-inspired iPhone might look like back in March 2006. Now, Apple filed a motion yesterday showing another iPhone concept design it developed in 2005 called Purple, except it's white, but it's called Purple, and it really looks like an iPhone 4. This is from before the first iPhone came out.
And as far as I can see, no Sony printed on that one.
No, this is not a. This is Apple saying, no, we were designing the iPhone earlier on. We did this Sony thing just as an exercise to see what it would look like.
And I think that this happens all the time with Apple products. And what's the most interesting about this is that you're getting to see an interior, an inside look at the way Apple designs things. I think in all companies, they say, oh, let's get some inspiration from this or let's try this. I think what ultimately counts, though, is what's released. And there was nothing that was released that had Sony or even the Johnny, I like that one, There was another one that has a
Jony. Yeah.
Right. So, and the way Apple works and a lot of companies work is that they have multiple teams doing different variations over time. So the iPhone 4 was under development when the iPhone 3G was released, and probably maybe even when the original iPhone was released. So it's not really that surprising to see an iPhone-like prototype, iPhone 4-like prototype appear that early in the design process.
Do you think if we look through some of these court filings, we'll get a hint at future iPhones?
Well, if we're looking at the 2005 stuff, and that's what came out last year, I would assume so. That looks like, I mean, Apple's been messing around with lots of designs. I mean, when it comes to iPhones in particular, I know that they usually have, what, 5 or 6 going at one time? At least that's what the Steve Jobs books was talking about, that they have like basically a roadmap of the next 5 or 6 years ahead of them. I mean, there's a great piece on The Verge about the entire case, Apple versus Samsung, written by Matt Macari and Nilay Patel. If you want to know exactly what's going on here, why do these designs matter? You know, why does Sony's designs matter? Why do the old Apple ones matter? It's because of what exactly this case is about. It's about trade dress, and it's also about patents. And so it's really, really intense. And so I don't know even if you can encapsulate exactly what this is about. But if Apple can prove that Samsung copied them, then they can win up to $2.5 billion.
Well, that's what they're asking for.
Yeah, it's a lot of money riding on this.
It's not like a game show where the $2.5 million in fabulous
in
prizes.
a furniture set.
Well, I guess they could make it like a game show. Add some lighting.
Well, and that's what has me puzzled is all of these leaks are fascinating to us, but you know that Apple doesn't want us to see any of this stuff unless we don't have to. And Judge Koh has been very clear, I'm not going to seal a lot of records. And yet they keep pushing. Why are these two companies not settling when they have competing disputes?
It just sounds like they're playing the biggest game of chicken ever. Because Samsung's probably banking on the fact that Apple does not want any of its designs shown. Apple's like, fine, we'll show it. Samsung doesn't want to be dealing with this either. They just everyone wants this to be done with, both companies. But I don't know why they're both continuing to do this. But we're at the jury selection phase, and it might stop before that because maybe in our world, it seems like everybody who doesn't know about this already, who doesn't know the comparisons between that, but there's a whole huge pool of people that have no idea this ongoing dispute. So I don't think Samsung or Apple want to be educating the jury to the level that they need them to understand that the stakes are just so high. It just seems like they need to settle this between themselves.
It seems to me, wouldn't it be able to, even if it's not true, come up with a really good reason why you would put together a prototype with someone else's company logo on it? I mean, Apple could say, we loved this phone, we were going to go ahead with it, and we just thought, you know, is it the sort of thing that would look good coming from any company? If we look at the same phone from one of our rivals, would consumers like it as much, or is this something special that's going to only be associated with Apple? I mean, that's the sort of thing that companies do. I mean, that's just competition, right?
If Sony were to make a phone, what would it look like, and how do we differentiate ours?
Exactly.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Dwight, why do you think these two are still going at it instead of coming to some kind of resolution?
I think it's the Steve Jobs thermonuclear war. I think that Apple has drawn a line in the sand. And I also think there probably is a game of chicken going on here. I like that description. There have been some indications from some of the language that Tim Cook has used that Tim would wish this whole thing would go away, but they probably have gone too far at this point. But they do run the danger of showing some of their hand. I mean, one of the documents has already shown a future Windows 8 phone, 2 of them from Samsung. So Samsung's kind of already shown some of its future products in these filings.
Yeah, it's not really good for either one, I guess, unless you win. But at what cost? You win and you release a lot of your secrets, certainly not all your secrets. And then I guess, what is the outcome? What is the positive outcome here for one side or the other? That their patents are solid and then they can go and license them elsewhere?
Well, I think Apple smells blood here.
Yeah.
I think if anybody who looked at the original Galaxy S knew that it looked exactly like an iPhone 3G. And even the new one, what's funny about the Galaxy S3 looks a lot like the longer, slimmer iPhone 5 prototypes that have been floating around out there. So I think Apple smells blood, and that's another reason that they're pushing it so hard.
Yeah, and it's not an unusual tactic for lawyers to try to push things as far as possible so that they cover the things that they really want to cover and without worrying that they might have to give up any piece. So this is a case of them really pushing it out to the edge to make sure that nobody else tries to do the same thing that Samsung has done. But I think you're right. I think it's a little bit of all of that. I think it's a little bit of a game of chicken. I think it's a little bit of an emotional response kind of continuing and permeating throughout the organization set by Steve Jobs back in the day. Over in England, there's some data problems.
Yeah, there are. The Olympics are going on. Have you heard? It's a big deal. London 2012 is underway, and one of the most interesting parts of the story for me personally, but just to watch all of the NBC fail complaints is, at least on our side of the pond, how many folks are mad as heck that they're not being able to watch events live. Even if it's at an inopportune time for many people's sleep schedules, you still want to be able to, if you want to tune in to that 400-meter whatever swim meet at a certain time, it doesn't get spoiled for you on social media. So that's one side of the story, but the data side of the story actually came about on Saturday. There was a men's cycling road race, and there were some data issues. Data wasn't getting through from the GPS satellite nav system that was actually traveling alongside the cyclists. That was problematic, particularly for viewers in England, because commentators couldn't look ahead and kind of inform viewers, so-and-so is in the front because we've got the camera trained on, the back of the crowd at this point.
Because the commentators aren't cycling along with them either.
No.
They're sitting over at a broadcast booth somewhere.
They really depend on these nav devices in order to basically keep up on the event with some knowledge. Turns out the International Olympic Committee spokesman said, here's what happened. People were sending too many messages, things like tweets and SMSs and all sorts of stuff from sidelines along the route. Spokesman said, quote, of course, if you want to send something, we're not saying, no, you can't do it.
They're being very careful
We
about
would
that.
certainly never prevent people. It's just, if it's not urgent, please kind of take it easy. Now, a lot of folks are saying, listen, I mean, you knew that there were going to be a lot of people on site. Certainly a lot of people talking about the Olympics worldwide, but particularly on site, all of the service providers, BT, Vodafone, O2, which is owned by Telefonica. But these are all companies that spend a lot of money and infrastructure trying to make sure that things like this didn't happen. Now, we did actually get a voicemail from somebody who happened to be down on the scene of the cycling race, who has a little bit of a theory as to what happened.
Hey TNT crew, it's Connor from London here. There are numerous reports in the press this weekend about problems that disrupted the television coverage of the Olympic cycling road races. GPS data from the riders is sent over the same mobile network that the public uses, and the International Olympics Committee has said that spectators using Twitter over these networks prevented the location data from cyclists being sent in a timely manner. Well, I live in London, and I was one of the many spectators who lined the course for the cycling road races this weekend, and I'd like to offer a different explanation. The problem wasn't Twitter, it was the thousands of people using smartphones to watch the BBC's live stream of the event. During the time I spent spectating, there was seldom a moment when I couldn't hear the sound of BBC commentators from someone's smartphone, and we saw a noticeable drop in quality of the live stream as the riders got closer. The riders probably spent the entire race in the middle of a huge bubble of network utilisation. The irony is that live streaming made the event much more enjoyable for the spectators on the road and much worse for those on TV. Enjoying the show from Petaluma, and I hope you're enjoying the show from London.
The tables, they continue to turn. The online folks have got the upper hand.
I'll buy that. If a bunch of people are streaming video along the route, that's going to clog up the network.
It's not tweets. I mean, even if you're sending a lot of pictures attached to your tweet, I mean, it's the streaming video. Absolutely. I don't have specific BBC numbers for the weekend, but NBC, at least on the U.S. side, which has a streaming app, and ways to watch some of the coverage online, told All Things D it delivered 7 million live streams and 13.2 million total streams just on Saturday, 943,000 streams of Saturday's swimming session alone. It was a big one. It was the one that Phelps lost. I'm sorry if I just spoiled it. And in Beijing for the first day, if you just want to compare the numbers, NBC had served up about 1.6 million live streams, 5.2 million streams in total. So we're more than doubling the numbers, and that was just several years ago. So it's certainly trending in that in that direction. I know many of you are watching live streams, and it's a little bit different than, well, it's a lot different than watching what ends up getting packaged on TV in a tape-delayed form later on. You miss out on a lot of the commentary. Some people don't like that. Some people do. You certainly miss out on some really interesting instant replays and really interesting camera angles that you don't get on the live feeds. But then again, Twitter will spoil it for you if you pay enough attention. Even if you follow NBC's own Twitter account, they'll spoil stuff that they haven't run on the news yet. I think NBC's doing the right thing in trying to stream everything live. You can have quibbles about how they authenticate and all of that, but using the app, on Saturday, I was one of the people who was angry, like, the stream isn't working all the time, and they don't have commentators. But then on Sunday, the stream worked great. We watched the 400-meter relay live on the app in a cafe, and there was commentary. And it was the same exact commentary that you would see on the broadcast later on. So it's just sort of inconsistent in that way. But Dwight, are you following any of this stuff? What's your opinion?
Well, I haven't watched any of the events. Although I have, you kind of don't have to if you're just watching Twitter. You know, you get your own kind of commentary that way, and you can keep up with it online. What I would like to see NBC do is incorporate Twitter into these live streams so that Twitter becomes the commentary as you watch it. I think that would be a perfect way to kind of bring social media into it, and certainly it would up NBC's social media savvy, which has not been held in good regard so far.
I think that's my main problem with this too. Is you're right, Tom. If you want to watch something live, you have options. It's not going to work for everybody, but there's definitely an option, more than we've had in the past. But it's messy because it's the same sorts of folks who'd be interested in using an app, authenticating with their cable subscription to be able to watch stuff live because they understand how the internet works and they're savvy enough, who also want to discuss this with people. And with all of the ways that we discuss things online in real time, it just doesn't work for everyone else who's however many hours later.
We haven't figured out the realities of the new world.
It seems like, very backward. Or at least show it live on NBC and then stream it later for primetime people that you know it's going to be a big enough event that they'll watch it again. What's so wrong with that?
NBC has two constituencies it has to appeal to. It's got the traditional folks who are going to come home in the evening, and that's how they're going to experience the Olympics. And then it also has people like us who are digitally savvy and who are trying to get it as it happens and talk about it at the same time. And so this is kind of a transition period. NBC is trying to have it both ways. And there are financial reasons why they want to do that, because they want to get the large number of people there. But I think going forward, we'll see this will be a much smoother process in future Olympics.
Yeah, they do get better at it a little bit every Olympiad, every couple of years. Speaking of Twitter, a lot of rumors flying over the weekend about Apple wanting to buy a stake in them. How much credence should we give these, Iyaz?
I say a bit of credence because it's the New York Times actually reporting this. It's not like some random blog that just popped up on WordPress or something. New York Times says that Apple was in talks with Twitter for a strategic investment of hundreds of millions of dollars, and the time period would be the last couple of months. Now, Wall Street Journal had also reported something like this had happened last year. Obviously, there's competition in the marketplace. Microsoft owns a piece of Facebook. Google has Google+, and Apple doesn't really have a social network to speak of unless you want to count Ping, which I don't think a whole lot of people do. Apple has about $117 billion in liquid investments, and Twitter's valued at about $10 billion. So if Apple wanted to, it probably could buy it outright, but the idea would be that Apple would buy a piece of Twitter. And Dick Costolo has said that Twitter has truckloads of money, and that's apparently been found out to be $600 million in the bank. That's what they have sitting around.
I'd fill a couple trucks, probably.
Do you think, Tom, what do you think? Do you think that Apple should buy a piece of Twitter to have some control?
I don't think they need to, and I think it's a bad idea. Apple buys technology and staff. That seems to be what works for them. Rarely do they buy something and then keep it going, but even when they do, they make it Apple. I would hate to see Apple buy Twitter and suddenly it becomes the Apple social media part of iCloud.
Well, what
I want
if
Twitter to stay Twitter.
What if they're investing a large chunk of money in Twitter, which drives up Twitter's valuation, and then when Twitter IPOs, Apple ends up reaping the rewards? I mean, that would just be Apple believing in Twitter over the long term, which they already seem to because they're baking it into iOS more and more with every release.
Dwight, do you think that Apple should be doing this because right now all the other major social players are tied up with competitors? I mean, Apple doesn't have, they don't have somebody in their back pocket like Microsoft does when they have that really good Facebook integration in Windows Phone. But Apple switched to Twitter because that Facebook deal fell apart. Should they be concerned about their future in social?
I'm not sure that Apple switched to Twitter because the Facebook deal fell apart. I think probably Apple was working on both of them at the same time. It would have been ideal if Twitter and Facebook had both been baked in. And what's interesting is that the discussions that the Wall Street Journal was talking about came about the same time. I think that they were baking in Twitter into iOS 5. So my suspicion is that this is just part of Apple's normal process of bringing partners into the fold and then possibly investing more in them.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that it probably did happen. I don't think anybody's going to buy Twitter, not anytime soon. Anyway.
And Twitter has said it doesn't want to be bought.
Yeah.
I mean, Twitter is in this ultimately for an IPO and something much bigger. And what's interesting about Apple is that Apple is extremely bad at doing social. I mean, you can look at Ping, and it's the fact that it doesn't let its employees participate in social media. You definitely don't want Apple buying Twitter.
I can definitely see Apple buying a piece and putting money into Twitter, keeping them afloat just because they want that competition out there. One of the big things that Apple was really annoyed with in the past was when its software partners wouldn't come with them, like Adobe didn't, and so that would turn into a huge feud. If they have somebody in their back pocket, somebody they can constantly go, you guys will always be afloat because we're around. That kind of thing. So they can have leverage against Facebook and Google Plus and whatever other social networks will come up. I think there's a good chance they're probably going to do it because this is Tim Cook's Apple. This could be very different.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by the new Squarespace.com. Faster and easier than ever to create a high-quality website or blog. Squarespace launched a new content management system called the new Squarespace recently, and if you haven't checked it out, go try it out. You don't even need a credit card. Just go sign up. You can try it out for free. A entirely different code base, uses the latest web tech, HTML5, CSS3, new JavaScript. It's faster, it's more flexible, and it gives you and your website users the best mobile experience possible. Squarespace automatically restructures your site to fit any size device, so it looks professionally designed no matter what screen people are looking at it on. And it's got all the same great plugins. You can import your blog from other services. You can put Twitter and Google+, Instagram, Foursquare, Dropbox, LinkedIn, anything you want pretty much in there. So try it for free. Go to squarespace.com, sign up for a free account. As I said, you don't need to give them a credit card or any information like that. If you start building your website out and you like it, then you can give them your credit card number because you're deciding to purchase it. But don't forget to give them this, too. Offer code TNT7 and get 10% off your first purchases on new Squarespace accounts. That includes the monthly plans and the annual plans. Don't forget about free domain registration still going on. You get an absolutely free domain when you sign up for an annual plan subscription, and that's a domain name you get to keep, and it's easily and automatically directed towards your new blog. Squarespace.com, use that offer code TNT7, and we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All Things D has a report about Marissa Mayer's changes at Yahoo. She's only been there a couple weeks, but apparently started a weekly Friday afternoon all-hands meeting. Employees of Google's might recognize that. That's what they do there as well. The food in the Yahoo Cafe at the headquarters will now be free. So she's really trying to pump up employee morale, doing other things like redesigning the floor space to make things more collaborative, pushing for better products all the time as well. So it's not all just employee benefits. She's also like, we need a better Flickr, we need better mail, we need better search advertising. And Kara Swisher speculates that maybe we'll see a splashy product announcement or product acquisition soon. Sarah, what do you think? Marissa seems to be trying to fire up the employees and light a fire under them at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say, well, okay, now food is free in the cafe. How good could the food really be? These just sort of seem like silly employee morale switches. But employee morale counts for a lot. Yahoo has no employee morale right now.
Yeah,
I mean, the few folks that are there, I mean, there's more than 3 people working there, but there are a lot fewer Yahoo employees than in the past, and they've really been beaten down. And these sorts of things do matter, especially when you say, listen, you've had 5 different CEOs, and I'm just straight out of the gate, I'm going to make it different. You're going to walk through the door when you come to work in the morning, and things are going to look different. You're going to have free perks that you didn't have before. We're going to have an all-hands meeting that clearly worked for Meyer when she was at Google. That's been going on for years. Google has a lot better employee retention. So these are steps in the right direction. Absolutely.
Dwight, what do you think? Is Marissa doing the right things early on? It's pretty early to tell, or should we give her some more time?
Well, Marissa had said in the past when asked about Yahoo before she was CEO, she said that one of the most important things you have to do to keep a company like Yahoo running is to recruit the best talent as well as retain what you have, and that's what these steps are being done for. You know, if you're going to be competitive in Silicon Valley, particularly when Google is one of your biggest competitors, you got to match it. These are some easy ways that they can do that, and certainly it's going to attract the attention of people who might consider working at Yahoo. You know, you get essentially the same perks that you get at Google. I think they should be looking out for the free dry cleaning, though. That's what I would want.
So some daycare, maybe some bicycles in the office.
The ball pit. Don't forget the ball pit. That's cool. But I think a lot of this looks like that. When Marissa Meyer's there, she wants to invest in the Yahoo people that are there now, and if it means feeding them, that's the way to do it. It's this idea that, okay, we can't give you a ton of money, but we can make you happy while you're here. And let's show you that we care about you guys. And something as small as free food, like that does show that you're willing to keep the people you have happy.
Yeah, well, not only that, but seem like an attractive place for new people who are coming in, who are smart, that you want to work for Yahoo.
You've got a beaten down employee base, and you're about to go to them and say, we really need you to fix this stuff. So you want to give them something that says we're not just beating on you anymore.
Here's a Twinkie.
And yeah, you're absolutely right about
when did you stop beating your employees?
Enticing people in. So I'm still waiting for that first big product announcement or maybe product acquisition to come along, and that's going to be the telling point at which I think we can start truly evaluating her reign. Ed Bott has an interesting story up on ZDNet today about Microsoft's business plan as he interprets it from that SEC filing we were talking about on Friday.
Yeah, last week Microsoft filed its 10K report, and that a lot of people picked up on the idea that Microsoft did acknowledge that they are probably annoying their hardware partners by entering the hardware business with the Surface. But Ed Bott went through the entire 10K. He does this annually, and he has 3 predictions based on his detailed reading of it. Number 1, services are the cornerstone of Microsoft's strategy, because the word services was used a lot more times this year than previously, showing Microsoft's change from just being a software company to services. But obviously the next point is the one that people are still they're salivating about. Surface isn't a bluff or a hobby. Regarding an ecosystem, there's no mention of hardware partners. Instead, the language focuses on Microsoft's Windows 8 and Surface devices, and they keep, as Sarah mentioned in the news views, Microsoft's got a lot of hardware stuff like the keyboards and mice, but they said they will continue to invest in new software and hardware products such as the Surface line, implying that it's just the beginning.
And they don't mention the Xbox, which they usually make a big deal about.
No Xbox 360 discussions, no partner mentions. I mean, Dwight, do you think Microsoft's going all in with the Surface, and this is just the beginning of a new hardware-software integration from Microsoft?
Ed's analysis of this was excellent, and I think that that Microsoft, you know, they do say that that they're going to introduce new devices, but there is that language in which they express concern about the relationship with their partners. The reference to the partners is there in the area of risks, so I think that remains an important part for them. But yeah, I suspect that if Surface takes off, if they can price it so that it's competitive, and if the shock of Windows 8 changes doesn't poison the atmosphere for the Surface, I'm not sure that Windows 8 is necessarily itself going to be a hit. Then yeah, I think Microsoft will go ahead and move forward. But I think they're going to continue. I think they have to proceed with caution initially, because right now they have ideas, but they have not executed.
I think it's smart for Microsoft to become a services company. I think they can do that really well, especially with Microsoft Office. That's pointed in the right direction. I'm curious about the idea of them becoming a hardware company. In essence, it's the reverse Apple, especially the Apple of the 80s, where they said, well, we were a hardware company, and now we're going to license it out and allow other people to make our devices, but we're still going to make them. And of course, they immediately reversed course, and that has worked very well for them. Microsoft may be looking at it as, we've always allowed other people to make the devices for us, but we've never made them ourselves. Maybe we'll try that out. I'm not sure how well that's going to work.
I mean, it really worked for them for the Xbox. I mean, they
didn't let anybody else make the Xbox, though.
Right. But
so this is different because you're saying, oh, everybody can make Windows tablets and PCs.
Right. They
and
didn't
desktops.
have these OEM partnerships where everyone got really mad when Microsoft decided to make their own Xbox,
I just
for
wonder
example.
if that success, that little taste of success with their own hardware and software working together, and they're like, okay, well, there's a bug. We know exactly what goes in the Xbox. We don't have to worry about 15 or thousands of different models and drivers. It's just the same hardware. That control, I mean, seems very, very desirable for something like Microsoft, because the third prediction was that Microsoft would move aggressively. They'd be picking up the pace. Right now, I think Windows cycle is like 4 years. Apple's on a 1-year cycle on their operating systems. If Microsoft wants to be able to upgrade quickly, if they know the hardware requirements of each of the devices, or they know the actual devices, they would be able to do that a lot faster.
All right, let's finish up with something that is probably going to cause quite a lot of controversy for a long time, the ability to print out a gun with a 3D printer.
That's right. An American gunsmith constructed and shot what is believed to be the first known pistol partly made out of plastic 3D printed parts. Not fully created, but partly. So I'll explain a little bit more. The creator has a username HaveBlue from an AR-15 forum. This was written up in Extreme Tech, by the way. Reportedly says he fired 200 rounds with a pistol that was part plastic parts without any sign of wear and tear. It's a .22 caliber pistol, and it was formed from a 3D printed AR-15 lower receiver, which is the part of the gun that actually legally makes a gun, and then a commercial upper part of the gun. So the main body of the gun, plastic, the chamber where the bullets are actually inside, solid metal. Now this receiver was made with what's called a Stratasys 3D printer. It's not the newest printer. It's somewhat of an antiquated model, but certainly a 3D printer using plastic resin, which is obviously a popular material for 3D printers. HaveBlue says it cost about $30 of resin to create this lower receiver, but something like MakerBots or other low-cost printers could bring the price down even from there significantly to, a third of that. What's interesting is that, hey, you're getting to the point where the important part of the gun, the one that allows it to fire bullets, is made out of a 3D printer. So even though he has not successfully shown that that's all you need, it's certainly what you need to get it to the point where it's not just a hobby, it's actually a working model.
Because you could buy the other parts without needing to have a license or...
Yeah, you're basically buying a piece of metal. I mean, it's obviously... It's metal that's designed to be part of a gun, but it's not like you're getting a gun license to go out and buy a gun from somebody who's certified to sell it to you. This is the beginning of a stage where, as long as you've got plans and the right material, this is something that could be constructed from scratch. And
it's a lot harder to do than maybe it sounds at this point.
Yeah, you're not pushing a button and a gun pops out of the 3D printer, but it's going to happen eventually. These materials... especially when 3D printers are starting to use materials, all sorts of materials. Plastic resin, again, is material that works for some things, not everything, but that's just one material that has been proven to work really well in 3D printing. And you think about something like, not just a gun, but really, I mean, if you print money, right? It's not real, unless, in the U.S. Mint. I print a bunch of money, but the money has to be authenticated in order for it to actually get me goods and services. And as long as somebody checks, then it's worthless. I can't actually recreate something that needs to be authenticated. Something like a gun doesn't need any of that.
I could build a lower receiver myself out of wood. I could forge the metal myself. This just makes it easier to do. And in some cases, that's great, right? If I'm a hunter, and I'm like, this is awesome. I'm going to save a lot of money.
Right.
I'm going to be able to go out and replace parts without having to take it into the shop. But if you're a criminal, it's also great too, right?
Many legal issues with that.
It veers off very quickly into the broader debate about firearms regulation. But it's kind of a distinctive signpost along the way to the issues we're going to be dealing with 3D printing.
Well, and also, what about the makers of something like MakerBot? You know, are we going to start seeing lawsuits against people who create things that allow bad guys to print out something that, you know, is illegal, will harm somebody else? Then you get into that argument of, well, I'm just a service. I didn't tell them to create this.
It's the argument that we always say. It's the gun argument, except this case, it actually is the gun argument.
The gun argument.
Guns. Dwight, what do you think of this story?
Well, I think it's a great story. It does give you a little pause. If anybody, you know, if one of these devices could make a gun that normally would have to have a license to get, but you could see down the road that the devices themselves being regulated and controls being put into them. For example, in Photoshop, it's very difficult to actually scan in Photoshop U.S. currency. It recognizes what it is and won't let you go much further. So, you know, one way to tackle it is to put controls on the printers themselves. And if this becomes rampant, I think that's what you'll see.
Yeah, Dwight, I think you make a great point there, because certain printers, not certain printers, all printers in the United States actually do print out like a special, almost invisible pattern on your printouts, because it needs to be identifiable, because it was this issue with counterfeiting money that the U.S. government was very concerned about with color printers and increasing technology with scanners. I would imagine that what would happen is that these 3D printer manufacturers would work with the government simply to say, yeah, when you print out something, there's going to be a traceable element to that gun. It's not like it's going to be these bunch of these will be unlicensed guns if they're being printed out, let's say, as easily as you know, something from an inkjet printer. But if there is this notice that, look, what you are creating is traceable to you, this might give enough of a deterrent effect to people to go, okay, we know this isn't untraceable, and that changes certain people's perceptions.
You try to put restrictions on stuff, though, people work around it. We've seen that with media for decades now. I think it puts me in mind of Charles Stross, the science fiction writer, who uses 3D printers as a main element of his futuristic novels. And in one of the novels that I read, Rule 34, there's a lot of attention given to how the police track what is printed by what printers. Printers are required to have a license, but of course all the criminals have off-license printers. So then there's forensics that allow you to trace back a printed object of any kind to the printer that made it, because printers have unique variations, just like typewriters have unique variations, and you can tell what typewriter a typed message has been typed on. We may be able to have that as well. But it opens up a whole new debate about the internet, about copyable information, and about DIY that I think is a productive debate. It's good to see it actually starting. Let's move on to the randomizer, shall we?
Randomizer.
One thing that hasn't changed in decades, according to scientists, is popular music. The Verge has a story about a recent study that attempted to determine once and for all, by looking at 464,411 popular songs, whether all pop music sounds the same. The researchers examined 3 different aspects: pitch, volume, and timbre, and then analyzed the data. They found that music is getting noisier and more homogeneous over time. And that all you have to do is change your pitch transition and your timbral palette a little bit, and you got a hit.
I think anybody who listens to enough of what's, you know, considered top 40 music now, and that doesn't apply to all modern music, of course. There is a certain type of music that does all sound the same. I mean, yeah, there are different drum beats, but a lot of it is, there are somewhat proven models in what ends up being catchy, you know, what ends up sticking in your head, and it's a certain rhythm, so a certain tempo, and if a song's really, really popular, you can kind of create another song from the same skeleton.
Yeah.
And that's also popular.
I almost liken it, excuse me, I almost liken it to photocopying something. You take an original, you photocopy it once, it's basically the same thing, but maybe a little bit noisier. Over time, you keep photocopying that same thing, and it all becomes noise eventually, right? It's kind of the same with modern music to a certain degree, in that at one point, you know, many years ago, there was a template laid out, and everybody started to kind of build on that template, and now we're kind of at this zone where modern, like very popular where radio music, just as one example, kind of sounds very similar across the board, even though they might be considered different genres, but they all kind of fit into the same kind of noisy pool.
That all sounds the same to me.
Yeah, I know.
It actually
Am I getting old?
All the same. No, the science has backed you up on that now.
Yeah.
Dwight, does it all sound the same to you?
What happens when everything sounds alike is that when somebody comes along who's unique and different and still makes enjoyable music, they stand out. I mean, look at Adele. Adele sounds nothing like, you know, a lot of the top 40 music that you hear. But last year she had, you know, the top song and the top album in the country and probably in the world. So, you know, one benefit to everything sounding alike is that when you get somebody who's really unique, they really stand out.
Yeah, the study said that music peaked. After peaking in the 1960s, timbral variety has been in steady decline. So it's disco's fault. There we go. Now we know it. That started.
Disco didn't come in the late 70s. You're going to blame glam rock next?
Possibly.
Disco was the mid 70s. So I know because as a college journalist and a music critic, which I was at the time, I predicted that disco would be dead, and then a few months later, the movie Saturday Night Fever came out. So that's a sore spot.
Yeah. Let's leave that then and move on to the calendar.
Tomorrow, August 1st, is Yelp's quarterly earnings report. Earnings reports, they just keep on coming. Also tomorrow, iWork.com is going offline.
Oh, no.
Pretty much all sharing has been built into iCloud, so you don't need to log into iWork anymore, but you've got one more day to get some of your data off of iWork because it's still up for now. The new Dig is launching on Wednesday. The new team says it will be beautiful, it will be image-friendly, and it will be ad-free.
All right.
Very interested. You know, I'm rooting for these guys and gals. I don't know. Let's see what they've got. We'll see. We'll get our first peek on Wednesday. The Galaxy Note is coming to T-Mobile on August 8th for $250. In September, Nokia will close its handset factory in Salo, Finland, which is part of the global overhaul intended to save it a lot of money, over $1 billion by the end of 2013. This is actually the last plant in Finland, though, so it's pretty significant.
Well, the last Nokia plant in Finland.
The last Nokia plant, correct. No, there are other plants, I'm sure. I hope. I've never been.
Lots of foliage.
And we've got something we like to call the calendoomer. That's when a calendar and a rumor love each other very, very
New segment.
much. The Apple iPhone 5 and the iPad mini event are planned for September 12th, says iMore. The iPhone 5 release date, possibly September 21st.
Those aren't real dates. Those are suspected
Calendoomers.
Calendoomers.
Calendoomers, everybody. One more calendoomer while we're at it. The Surface for Windows RT tablet will go on sale on October 26th. This is because of some SEC filing, so we don't know
from that
for
same
a
SEC
fact
filing
that this date is correct, but it is more fact than
This one's
rumor.
more likely to be true. Yeah,
because they put it in the
because they told
filing.
the SEC. Not that they couldn't change it, I guess.
Yes.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Just got a voicemail today talking about the Google Fiber sign-up plan that we were mentioning on Friday and how it sounded familiar to this caller.
Brian from Minnesota. Just wanted to comment on your discussion of the Google Fiber sign-up process. To be honest, it sounds a lot like Facebook in the early days. You had to get 10% of your school to sign up. And by signing up, that meant that you had to give your email address as a term of commitment. Then once 10% hit, then your neighborhood, your school, was able to sign up for Facebook or get incredible internet speeds. And now Facebook is the biggest site in the world. Here's hoping the same goes for Google Fiber. Thanks for the show.
That is an interesting parallel, and they seem to be, as Iyaz mentioned in the news fuse, having some success. That sort of getting folks together, bringing the neighborhood together.
Yeah, we talked about how it was really dependent on neighbors getting the word out to other neighbors. I think that when you look at these numbers on paper, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of convincing.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Gigabit per second? I'm in.
I'm in, yeah. Where do I sign?
Chris Mitchell pointed me to an interesting article today that showed that it will be easier for Google to do this kind of thing than others because Google can afford the transit rates on the backbone. But if I, as a regional small ISP, wanted to imitate Google, I would have to pay much higher rates to interconnect with the rest of the internet than Google has to pay because Google owns so much fiber already. So there's another wrinkle. There's always another wrinkle and how this stuff works. Maybe Google is going to become an ISP.
Frankly, fiber.
Or maybe Google's going to charge better rates to these regional ISPs that want to roll out a Google Fiber-like outfit. Who knows? Well, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks to everybody in our subreddit for submitting stories and helping us figure out what to cover each day. TechNewsToday.reddit.com. Appreciate that. And thank you, Dwight Silverman, for taking the time to join us. Always a pleasure. Let folks know what you're up to and where they can find your work online.
You can find me in my tech blog at blog.cron.com/techblog. I'm on Twitter as dsilverman. And every Wednesday night from 8 to 10 Central Time, I'm on Technology Bites. It's our computer call-in help show. You can listen to it on the web at kpft.org.
Definitely listen. It's a good listen. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. And you can give us a call, leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Simon Dingle joins us tomorrow. We'll see you then.